Hello and welcome to Gamepass Gaming's Midweek Catch-up podcast. I am your host Flap and thank you for being with us. And as you can probably see from the screen already, we have one half of the GPG crew with us tonight. Sadly, no Pucks and no Luke, but we do have Scott SX2 sitting in the co-pilot seat. Welcome to the show, Scott. I believe you're going to be looking after chat tonight.
I'm going to do my very best. Pucks does a pretty good job of doing it, so I've got big shoes to fill. But
I'm sure you'll smash it out of the park, mate. Fantastic. And as you've probably noticed, fear not, we have two guests covering up the last two quarters of your screen. And we'll start with the illustrious and the energetic Pong Soul. Welcome back to the show, my friend. It has been far too long. How are you doing?
Very long time, for sure. My flight across the pond was easy. It was quick, and I am happy to be here. But yes, it has been too long, Flap. I appreciate you so much for the invite, as always. Happy to be here. Great to finally be on a show with Darren. I know he's been coming up in the ranks here, so great to see that. And obviously, miss you and Scott, and obviously the rest of the GPG crew. Sorry you guys couldn't be here, but we got a lot to talk about. Let's get down to it.
Indeed. Well, Darren, we'll come to you next. Are you there? Can you hear us? We can hear you.
Yep, I'm here.
Welcome to the show, my friends.
As ever.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, community member. You've been kind of we kind of met via Discord a little while ago, didn't we? And you've asked to come on the show, and here you are. So welcome to the show, my friend.
Yeah, to be totally honest, I didn't even remember asking to come on the show last night. I got told by Dave and Stubbs today. Did I? And I have to double check.
Oh, you were slightly inebriated, were you? Okay, fair point.
Slightly, yeah. I was suffering a bit.
No worries. Well, you had something to celebrate, but we won't go into that right now. So, well, thank you for being here. Chat, anyone that's listening, always a valuable fifth part of this community, fifth member on the panel. Please get involved. Stick any questions in you want to ask us. And if there's any particular topic you feel passionate about, I'm talking about passion. Puxley got very passionate about one of the topics last week. If you missed that, check out last week's show. But here we are. We've got three topics to go through. Two quite meaty, one less so. But we'll start off with topic number one. And that is Sony earlier this week dropped some extra news around their project Spartacus, as it was called. I'm guessing it's not called that anymore. And they've officially added 3 tiers to the PlayStation Plus subscription service. They detailed those slightly. We've got PlayStation Plus Essential, which is basically what you're getting right now if you're already a PlayStation Plus subscriber. We've got Extra and Premium / Deluxe. I don't know what the difference between those two is. And they all each offer a different level of content. As I've said, Essential is pretty much the same as what you get with PS Plus now. 3 free games every month. Extra gives you access to content from PlayStation Studios and third-party partners. And I was actually quite surprised with the list of first-party titles that we'll be able to get our hands on with that. And then the Premium and Deluxe gives you access to the classic game catalogue, originals and remasters, PlayStation 3 games via streaming, and time-limited game trials, which allows you to play the games up for 2-hour in-game hours before you need to purchase the game. So, yeah, some people on the internet, obviously now this has been fleshed out with some details. They're saying, "Oh, is this a direct competitor to Game Pass?" Pong, let's come straight to you first, perhaps. Was you quite surprised with the offering that that Sony have put, particularly around the first-party studios or games that they've added to the Extra and Premium tiers?
Pretty much what I expected.
Okay.
A lot of people were, it's been going back and forth because of Game Pass, because of the value there. It's always going to be hard for Sony to match that, right? And we had plenty of those discussions when the rumors about this started. And then people, when they first announced, were like, God, that's really expensive. This is terrible. I always said, hold your horses and kind of wait. This is the beginnings. This is not the final form of this. And I said, they're going to have a lot more to announce. I was fairly impressed with the first party lineup. I think they could have done more. But I think overall, adding the director's cuts of Death Stranding and Ghost of Tsushima was excellent on their part. For somebody like me who got rid of their PS4 prior to like Ghost of Tsushima coming out.
Oh, really?
To get the series console. For me, when I get my PS5, this is an instant buy now, right? And I think for newcomers or people who may not have played a lot of those PlayStation games, this definitely adds a ton of value, and I can see why they did what they did. So I think they still got more to announce, but I think from the first party standpoint, I I'm satisfied with what they're offering. Again, we can't compare it to Game Pass, otherwise it all falls apart. Just as a standalone service for starting out in this subscription service kind of model for Sony, where they're at right now, I think it's a good start. That's
Yeah,
where
no,
I'm at.
I completely agree. And to be honest, I have a PS5, and as part of PlayStation Plus, you get like a PS5 collection, I believe they call it. And there's already some of those games that are available with this new extra tier in there. So things like Horizon Zero Dawn, God of War. So I've already played those, but I was actually surprised by some of the other games that are coming on there, and some that are still, I believe, retailing for roughly £70 stroke dollars on the PlayStation Store. Scott, I think we mentioned on our Discord channel, shameless plug for our Discord channel. If you want to join the Discord channel and carry on the chat, description is in the link. Link is in the description below. Sorry. Yeah, I think we were kind of pleasantly perhaps surprised by what was going in there, particularly in the form of Demon's Souls and Returnal, which I believe are still being charged at full price on the PlayStation Store at this moment in time.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big takeaways from the announcement flap is the some of the first party games in particular, they haven't been out an awful long time. And the two that you mentioned, so Demon's Souls was obviously a launch title, so that's less than 18 months old. Returnal is about 12 months old, I believe, at this point. I think, did that come out April-ish last year? So those are games that have not been out an awful long time, and yet are included in this. But there's also some obviously other fantastic games in there: God of War, Ghost of Tsushima, Marvel Spider-Man, Miles Morales is in there again, a game that hasn't been out that long. So I think people have been pleasantly surprised at the recent first party titles that have been included. And I think what that has given people is hope that the games that are coming out, Horizon Forbidden West, obviously that's just being released, Gran Turismo, God of War, Ragnarok, that's like to come. I think it's given people a little bit of hope that maybe they're not going to have to wait as long as they maybe first feared for those titles to appear in within the PS4 or the PS5 game catalog that's in there. So yeah, I think it was a pretty damn good list and pleasantly surprising at the same time.
Yeah, well, my plan has actually paid off, and it's not often my plan pays off because Luke is a staunch advocate for Returnal. He absolutely loves the game, and I've been holding off buying it, hoping that when this first got announced, I'm thinking, will Returnal be in there? Like I say, it's a £70 game. Possibly not. Yeah, there it is. Fantastic. That's brilliant. I'm surprised you didn't mention Death Stranding, Scott.
Yeah, well, you know my feelings on Death Stranding.
I do.
It's the world's most boring game.
It's got
I'm
both
not playing
versions.
it. I'm being flippant. I am being flippant with that comment. But again, yeah, it's just another example because the PS5, the director's cut, hasn't been out that long, and I believe it's the director's cut that's included in this as well. So again, it's just another example of the first party support that this service is getting that maybe people weren't quite expecting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And to be honest, and Darren, we'll come to you with this one. I think I was the same as you, Scott. I think I was assuming that Sony were going to be quite staunch on this one and play hardball and not put Returnal and Death Stranding and Demon's Souls in there. Was you quite surprised by what's going in there, Darren? And like I say, this does bode well for the future as well, doesn't it? Surely.
Does it actually mean day and date games, the new ones that are coming out as well, going in there?
No, that's already. I think that's already been quashed. That one, hasn't it? Because I think Jim Ryan said that's not really for them.
I'm all for it because I'm joining the PS5 nation at the end of the month, so I can actually get a bit of this PS Plus action now. Because apparently Ubisoft Plus Classic is going in there.
Yes, I've not even come to that yet. Yeah. What do you know about that? Talk us through that, Darren.
I'm only going by what Stubbsy's been telling me and BMG's. He was the one that told me the other day that Ubisoft, I think it's just their early games, not their new ones, that are going into there at no extra cost, apparently. Yeah.
So that's the Ubisoft Plus Classics tier that's included in the top tier of the service, which was kind of a new tier. So you've got Ubisoft Plus, which is all of Ubisoft's games day and date. That's only on PC at the moment. It's coming to PlayStation and Xbox in the not too distant future, hopefully. But it's like 15, 16 quid a month, I think, for that. But you get all their games day one, pretty much like you do with Game Pass for Xbox. And this new tier is essentially like EA Play, I think is the easiest comparison, where EA Play kind of have a catalog of all the games that they put in the subscription service that's a little cheaper. Ubisoft kind of, PlayStation announced it for them basically. That's going to be included in the top tier as well. So it's almost like PlayStation Plus's rival to Microsoft's or Xbox Game Pass's EA Play, if that makes sense. Again, the third-party sort of classic titles or older titles included in the service as well.
So what sort of
Ubisoft Plus also has all DLC on their top tier as well, which is the big thing too. Yes,
and
so
just a quick correction, actually, because
as well, then.
Not the classic tier, Darren. Not the classic.
Not the classic. DLC from the games, like all
the classic
DLC,
is just going to be
Assassin's Creed and that.
Yeah, the classic is just going to be Vault style, like EA Play, where you just get the base game. It's basically what it's going to come down to. Yeah,
they've specified standard editions of games, and actually, just thanks to BMG in the chat for the correction there. The classics is also an extra. It's not just in the top tier, so it's an extra and premium, not just premium. So.
No, that's pretty cool. What tier does that come to? Does that come to all of the tiers, or is it just the premium?
I think it's the top two. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so it's not an essential.
Extra and premium.
Yeah, that's right.
Excellent. So here's a question for, and I think it kind of ties in with what Stubbs has said, Scott. We've just got a comment from Stubbs in there.
So comment from Stubbs who says, "Oh no, we have what if it comes to Game Pass mentality now? The what if it comes to PS Plus mentality? It's not good." So I think he's referring to your comment about Returnal there, Flat, maybe, which is you were kind of holding off on maybe for Returnal to come to a service like this, where I think a lot of people have that mentality with Game Pass at the moment, where a game comes out, they're a little unsure, and the mentality is, oh, it's going to come to Game Pass in a few months. I'll wait until it comes to Game Pass, which I think is fair, and I do think there's a bit of a mentality there. But if you believe Microsoft, and I don't think there's any reason why not, they say that Game Pass subscribers buy more games. So while there may be a mentality that Game Pass subscribers are waiting for games to hit Game Pass, by Microsoft's own data and what they're sharing with us, they are purchasing more games than a non-Game Pass subscriber as well. So
I must hold my hand up to that. I've got that mentality. I admitted it to Stubbs and Dave in our chat the other day. I wait for games to come to Game Pass. I am guilty of that myself. So.
Yeah, but once they have, are you a little bit more willing to perhaps spend some money on some DLC or some microtransactions?
Oh yeah, I think it was when the Forza game came out. Went out and bought it in the end. Played it for a while and then bought it through the Game Pass deals that they do.
Are we talking Forza Horizon 5?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Why did you buy it then? Just out of interest, because if it's on Game Pass, it's a first-party title. It's not going to disappear like some of the other ones. What made you buy that?
My daughter is a fanatic on it, so I bought it for her.
Okay.
So she loves it. She plays it more than me. I play it occasionally, but I'm more of a motorsports type of person. But she's mad on it.
That's interesting. So two different ends of the Forza
If she sees
spectrum.
a nice sports car down the street, she's got to stop. She's got to take all the pictures. Oh yeah, and she can name the cars. She'll look at the cars, name them. Yeah, I know that name, and she'll tell. I said, "What is it then?" She'll tell me. And when it was made, when the car was designed, I thought, "Oh really?"
Funny you should say that because my nephew and we used to play some of the early Call of Duties and stuff like that. And I did a trip to France with the Normandy beaches, where the Allies landed in World War II. And there's lots of museums and history. It's very respectful in France. I was really impressed with that side of things. And we went to one of these museums, and I just took a photograph of some of the World War II weapons. And my nephew, who is probably about 11 at the time, he's like, "Oh, that's an MP40. That's a Thompson M1A1. That's a Springfield." It's like, oh my God, he knows all of these guns because of the games that he's been playing. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
I think I'd be the same with World War II weaponry, with cars. A lot of that knowledge would probably come from games that I've played. World War II games were the thing for a long, long time, weren't they? So, I only know of the Thompson because I played Return to Castle Wolfenstein. Was it the MP40 again? That's another gun that I only know because I played a lot of Return to Castle Wolfenstein on the original Xbox. So,
wow. This is an interesting one, and this keeps cropping up, and I think you kind of alluded to it earlier, Pong. do Xbox now have a fight on their hands? And I know we'll come to you with this, Pong. I know you said that, it's not apples for apples at the moment. I think it will be heading that way. And so, we can't look at PlayStation Plus as it is now and compare it to Game Pass as it is now. But when it comes to having a fight on their hands, I guess what I really mean by that question is I'm guessing we're not going to have games that will be appearing on both services, either AAA, indie and stuff. So there's kind of going to be a jostle and a fight for who gets particular games on that platform. So do you think all of a sudden, because there's a new competitor in town for Game Pass, that Xbox are going to have to try a bit harder, or that they might not have quite as many games joining the service?
Yeah, and I think that they realize that, and that's a part of the acquisitions as well, right? Because they want to be able to supply most of the content themselves. They're always going to buffer it with third parties, with indies, obviously. That's a staple. However, they don't want to have to rely on it, because with a Sony now coming in to play in the same realm, on the same field, they are going to be in competition for certain third-party titles, for indie titles, who can get that exclusive subscription service placement, versus, up until this point, they pretty much had free run, right? So a lot of this comes back to, it's not a straight comparison, because we really can't, because gaming is so different. But if you're going to count Game Pass as the Netflix of gaming, right? If you're going to say that, and again, it falls apart when you get deep, but everybody can kind of visualize it. So if you're going to say that they're the Netflix, right? Sony's kind of the Disney Plus. Sony comes in out of the blue, but they have this huge, extremely already gigantic back catalog of very well-known IP that can draw people into their service, kind of like Disney did when they first brought out their subscription service compared to Netflix. They didn't have all the original programming, right, that Netflix does. Netflix was kind of doing their own thing, buying up, all these different TV shows, movies, all this kind of stuff on their own. Disney Plus comes in, and their subscriber base shoots through the roof automatically, just because of their known IP, the Star Wars, Marvel. All of that.
Yeah,
exactly. And that's what Sony kind of has over Xbox right now, is they have all this well-known IP that has a fanatical fan base, much like Nintendo. And basically their service is starting out in this kind of shape and form that's really basic, because they just want to convert as many of their own fans over to this new service to start out, while Jim convinces the Sony heads. Again, Jim is not running the ship like Phil is. Jim has a whole group of Sony people that have really old mentality when it comes to thinking of the gaming division, and he has to convert them over to this new thought. There is not a doubt in my mind Jim, as a businessman, understands what Xbox is doing and where the industry is going. There's not a doubt. But he's got to convince all this board to do this, and this board's going, why? We've dominated for generations. We don't need to change. What are you talking about? That's why you see him saying, hey, we're coming out with 10 games as a service in the next 2 years. They're slowly but surely working their way towards that. But to begin out the gates, they have some advantages. They're going to use those advantages. That's why I liked what I saw out of that first party lineup. You saw a couple third parties sneaking in there, right? They got the Ubisoft announcement ahead of Xbox. We imagine we're going to see the Ubisoft announcement for Xbox, probably the showcase. I mean, it's a great spot to do it at, but they beat them to the punch with that. Again, that's what we're going to see competition-wise. But now going forward, Xbox is always going to be looking over, wondering if Sony's cutting a check for that next big third-party game. Even if they don't have the marketing rights, they're going to be out there hunting that content, because you need content. This will only get them so far, as Xbox knows you got to have consistent new content dropping in there, so that people aren't subscribing for a couple months and then unsubscribing, like we see with Netflix now, right? Netflix kind of screwed up their whole model. Now you got people dropping out of the services, waiting for their next favorite show, another season, and then they'll resubscribe again. Sony does not want that. That's not the model you're looking for. You want that residual income coming in month in, month out. That's what Xbox wants. But yeah, you're going to have some competition now. So I think that Xbox understands that. But again, that's why they're acquiring all these studios, so they have more first-party content than anybody else on the market. But again, we see the problem until you get everybody up there, ramped up and running on all cylinders, and those games coming out on a regular basis. you get these big giant holes like we see with that Starfield and Redfall left behind, right? So that's the problem with not having everybody, there quite yet. But Activision Blizzard's going to go a long way to that. But Sony right now, they can walk in, get a big chunk of their fan base subscribe to their service. Their numbers are going to look great. It's definitely going to look great to third parties and indies who want to jump in. They already love the Sony brand as it is. Sony's going to be able to say, hey, we already have, 25, 30 million subscribers out the gates because we converted all these people over. Come on over. And then that's how they can get that ball rolling. So Xbox has to be aware of that.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point. And Scott, I'll come to you with this. And it's kind of on the back of what Pong's just said, really. Is this a good or a bad thing for indie developers, do you think? And I'll explain what I mean by that. Obviously, it could be a good thing because if you've got two competing platforms scrambling over the same game, then the highest bidder wins, kind of thing. So you might think, well, actually, indie developers and studios might actually earn a little bit more money out of this. Like I say, they'll go to the highest bidder. But perhaps the downside to that is if the competition is that fierce, will Microsoft and PlayStation actually be trying to outgun each other with AAA titles coming to their service kind of day and date and actually start to overlook indie developers? How do you think that might play out?
It's an interesting question, Flap, and I would my initial thoughts would be no. If anything, I would expect independent developers to probably benefit from this move, just on the basis that competition is good, not just for us as consumers, but also the developers and publishers that both Sony and Microsoft are going to be caught on in order to, as Pong rightly says, content is king. They're going to want that third party content on that platform, and I think there's two elements. First of all, money. If you're just going for the big third-party games, that money's going to run out fast. I don't think it's sustainable for them to just go and court every big third-party release that comes out. And that would then maybe mean you move over towards the independent developers because they're probably going to cost a little bit less to get in your service. If you want to add 10 games to your service each month, you're not going to be able to add 10 AAA games. You maybe have one or two in there, then the rest will be maybe smaller titles. And there's a couple of I guess the other element is it's not just necessarily competition, but it's also just the fact that, remember, it's optional. These independent developers, they don't have to go for these services. They can go for one. They can maybe go for both. They've still got the sales that come off the back of it. Game Pass and likely PlayStation Plus. What we'll probably see is those games that do go into those services will benefit from things like word of mouth. We know from Xbox's own reporting on how Game Pass subscribers, I guess, work within their ecosystem is they spend more money, they play more games, they buy more games. And we're likely to see something similar on PlayStation. Obviously, we won't know until it officially launches, but we're likely to see something similar. An interesting question I would have for you guys, though, and I'll put this out to the rest of the panel, is one game that caught my eye, and it's not an indie game, but I think it could also apply to indie games, Flap, and it might come back to the question that you asked, is Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, Guardians of the Galaxy is on Game Pass, and it's also coming to PlayStation Plus when it launches in June. Now, your original question to Pong was around exclusive content, which I think is interesting because a couple of things stand out. First of all, when Microsoft acquired Bethesda, they couldn't bring over all of their titles, Bethesda's titles, into Game Pass initially because some of those games were in PS Now at the time, which obviously, without seeing the contract, we can't say for certain, but that would at least indicate that there was some sort of exclusivity agreement within that contract that brought those Bethesda games onto PS Now. However, if Guardians of the Galaxy is going on to PS Plus, while it's on Game Pass, that at least indicates in that particular deal or that circumstance, and we know that every deal is the same, there's unlikely to be a similar clause or a similar contract. So, and this maybe goes back to your question, could we see a possibility where indie developers are going, yeah, Game Pass, I'll take your money. Yeah, Sony, I'll take your money. I'll take it all, and we'll go on both services. The interesting thing is will Sony allow that? But I guess with Guardians of the Galaxy being on there, it does seem that maybe they don't require every title to have an exclusivity deal towards that particular service. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out and whether that again could benefit them in the long run.
It's interesting that you picked on PlayStation to be the party poopers to that and getting contractual. Was that
Yeah,
Freudian,
I think
or do you think it would be Sony that could actually play hardball with these things and get a bit contractual with it?
Yeah, I think it's evident that it would be PlayStation. I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm not necessarily saying that's right or wrong, but I don't think it would be unfair to say that those would be the guys that would do it. And a couple of reasons for a flat. Again, the example with the Bethesda games, there's history there where they've got it. We know that Xbox are obviously open to that type of deal. Guardians is an example of it. There was also the Capcom leak, if you remember, where there was a clause in one of those leaks within that contract that specified that the game could not go on a rival service, and that was a contract which is likely templated, so it likely applies to similar deals that Sony have marketing contracts with. Like I say, I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing, but I think if it's one of the two that are likely to enforce such a thing, it's probably going to come from the Sony side. And they're market leader. They can be aggressive like that if they want. It's up to Microsoft to obviously fight that. But that's where the competition comes in. And this is why I think it'll ultimately be beneficial for indie developers. That competition is going to, I guess, in some ways drive costs. Not costs for us, but the cost of acquiring that content for Sony and Microsoft up. Because it's not just one service that's battling for it now, it's two.
Well, and if to sort of snare some of these either AAA titles or a handful of indie ones is starting to cost the platform holders slightly more, then there's only one way or direction that cost is going to get passed on, I guess, and that's to us as the consumer. So I guess I guess that has to be monitored quite carefully about how competitive this new sort of service culture with games is going to get, I guess, for us as consumers as well. So Darren, I mean, you're going to be relatively new to the PlayStation 5. This is a service I'm guessing you're going to subscribe to get access to all of those games. I'm just intrigued to know what tier you're going to go for.
I will probably go for the second to last one, not the top one, the
Extra,
one below. Yeah, because I think you get Universal, Ubisoft Classics with that one as well, so I should go for that one. But this indie development thing, I think I read the other day, Trek to Yomi, they came out and said they specifically got more money from Microsoft than they did PlayStation. I don't know how true that is. So is that the way they're going to go forward now? Microsoft's literally going to throw money at developers, say, yeah, you want your game in Game Pass. Here we go. There's the big wad of money to outdo PlayStation.
Well, I know Microsoft have a very large bankroll, shall we say, but it's still a business at the end of the day, and it's still, as a standalone service, needs to, I think, stand on its own 2 feet and actually turn a profit. Given a certain time frame, I don't know what that time frame is. I don't know if Game Pass is turning a profit now as a standalone entity. It'll be interesting to see how Microsoft play that one, because they've certainly got the clout and the capital. I mean, Sony aren't exactly poor, but whether they've got the same war chest as Microsoft, well, they obviously don't. But it'll be interesting to see how this battle for exclusive titles coming to each of the services kind of plays out. Do you
think you can honestly see Sony buying some more developers so they can start putting day and date into their service eventually? Do you think that could possibly happen? That's why I say, because Jim Ryan came out, I think it was last week, and said there's more to come, something bigger. So is that Ubisoft Classics he was talking about, or is that another acquisition that they're looking at to possibly reintroduce day and date like Xbox does with Game Pass to try and match them? Don't get me wrong, competition is all good and fair in love and war and all that, but you know what I mean? If they want to do that, let's go for it.
Well,
I'm up for that.
I think like Pong alluded to, I think Sony's mindset is still very much, we sell games individually and stuff. I don't know. I think, like you were saying, one of Jim Ryan's hurdles that he probably needs to get over with some of the older mindsets is putting games into their service day and date, because like you say, I think they're still sort of stuck in the we sell games for $70 kind of thing. Yeah, what do you think then, Pong? Did you think we'd ever see day and date games in PlayStation? You think?
I think eventually we will. I don't know if it'll be every single game. It may be select titles, but you can see them moving towards all of this. Again, PC, they're moving more of their games to PC. It's going to be shorter and shorter time frames from the time it goes, on the console till the time it hits PC. But see, Jim does have to show the Sony board the money-making ability. And that's why these games as a service are going to be so important. That's why they're investing in 10 of them. Not every one of those is going to hit. Like if they get 3 that are good out of that batch of 10, they'll be ahead of the curve, right?
Yeah.
But once he can start showing the board, hey, we now have these constant revenue streams coming in. We've got the subscription service giving us constant revenue. Our players are buying more DLC. They're buying more monetized transactions within the subscription service. But see, none of their games right now are set up that way. They have to convert all their studios and all of their teams over to make that happen. I expect going forward, we'll start seeing more and more monetization within the games, more DLC, more kind of extended type gameplay that necessarily might start coming out in smaller chunks, and then all of a sudden we'll get an update that'll add DLC, that'll add more to the stories. But that's going to be a slow transition process. Once they do that and Jim can show the board and everybody else at Sony that he needs to convince, hey, this subscription model does work, we're making more money than we did just plain selling games at $70, that's when you'll start to see those day and dates hit. Again, I don't expect every single one of them, but I do expect certain games to come in there day and date for sure. Eventually, again, a couple years down the road, once he's got everything worked out and they've got the numbers figured out, that's when they'll start to see that happen.
I don't even think it's that far down the road, Pong, to be perfectly honest. I think it's maybe a little bit sooner than we think. I think as soon as these live service games start coming, we've seen it a little bit in PS Plus already, actually. What was the game? Destruction All-Stars.
Yes.
That launched in PS Plus. I think there was maybe reasons there wasn't a lot of fanfare around that game, but that's an example of a game published by Sony that launched in PS Plus. Now the difference was that obviously it was only in for a month and then it dropped out, and then it was a relatively cheaper title. But they've dabbled in that with PS Plus with that type of game, and I think you're absolutely right. Those live service games, I think when they start hitting, I think really it's the timeline on when those games start hitting, but I think they'll definitely experiment with those. There's rumored games like Twisted Metal, for example, that is rumored to be in development by the team behind Destruction All-Stars. I think that's a prime candidate for a game that would likely launch in this service, because as you're right, that's a way that he can help demonstrate the benefits of launching games in there while monetizing the game long term, obviously, with it being likely a live service multiplayer for this title.
And the other big one will be Factions, right? The Last of Us multiplayer, when that hits, that will be a gigantic breadwinner for them if they hit it right? If Naughty Dog does what they do, if they can make that into like their first big kind of multiplayer experience that they've had in a long time, the monetization in that will drive a lot of numbers for Jim and go a long ways in convincing the heads that, hey, this is the way to go. This is the future. So.
Yeah, Naughty Dog don't have a great track record of multiplayer, do they? They're going to really have to pull it out of the bag for this, I think.
My brother from another
Factions was really well received.
Yeah, my brother, Steel will tell you that Factions is one of his favorite multiplayer experiences of all time, and he is a multiplayer aficionado. So they did do something right there. If they can expand it out and make it something really well rounded, something that they can obviously keep alive for an extended period of time. We're talking, like a games as a service. Should be, then you're going to see that win over a lot of fans within Sony headquarters for sure.
Well, Scott, I'm conscious we've got some chat to get through, but just before we do, and we'll probably round this one off, do you think that the head start that Xbox have had with Game Pass has given them a significant advantage in this kind of field, or do you think with this maneuver, and like Pong said, Sony are slightly behind the curve, but it's not going to take long for them to catch up. Perhaps. Do you think Microsoft capitalised on being the lone fish in the pond for a couple of years before Sony have joined the foray?
Yeah, I think so, mate. I think when you look at the data that we've got at the moment, and we don't have an awful lot, particularly on the Microsoft side, to play with, but we know that there's more than 25 million Game Pass subscribers. We know that there's, I think during the last earnings, they said there was around 46 million PS Plus subscribers. So I guess a question for you guys and chat as well. What do you think the uptake on the extra and the premium tiers is likely to be of that 46? Because PS Now, what was that? I think 2 or 3 million subscribers or something at the last time they actually disclosed those numbers. And while I appreciate the titles that they've announced here are good, and it certainly does seem to be an improved offering on PS Now, let's not forget that this is essentially just a rebranding of that service and incorporating that service into PS Plus. So there wasn't an awful lot of appetite from that user base for PS Now originally. So what sort of uptake do you think? I don't expect it to hit 25 million, obviously, initially. Eventually, it will likely hit that. But their PS Plus numbers have been stagnant. In fact, the PS Plus numbers actually dropped last quarter from 47 to 46 million, roughly. So they've got a limited pool, shall we say, of subscribers that they can bring over. So what sort of numbers do you think that Sony can expect?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be better than it's going to be better than PS Now. Okay, I know that for a
Yeah,
fact.
I agree with that entirely.
I definitely think they're definitely going to see it. Initially out the gates, I would not be. You're talking about the two higher tiers. I would not expect them. I would not be surprised to see between 10 and 12 million out the gates between those two higher tiers, with Ubisoft Plus being in there, or with Ubisoft the back catalog being in there to start out. Now, again, retention is going to be their problem, right? Retention is the big thing. When that wears off, when that excitement wears off, what do you have to keep people coming back for more, right? That's where I think it gets interesting. But I think they could hit 10. I really do.
And I think that's obviously where Microsoft has the advantage as well, Pong, because Microsoft, you know what games are coming in that Game Pass. The issue we got at the moment is we don't know when they're coming, but you know that those games, those first-party games are going in. You don't have that same
you don't have the roadmap.
Confidence.
You don't have the roadmap yet from Sony. You don't know how they're going to approach each month, right? Month to month, are they going to have a third-party title or two in there? Are they going to have indies coming in like Xbox does? Because the surprising thing is Xbox has done everything without first-party support for the most part, right? Yeah. So that's the surprising part, right? Is they've built this already decent, good-sized base of people who are happy with Game Pass, with a lot of third party, with a lot of indie, with a lot of older titles, without a lot of first party dropping in there, which only increases the value exponentially. So again, Sony has to show people what they are going to do so people can be confident. Hey, I know what I'm getting for my, $18 a month or whatever they're going to be spending. I know that next month going in, my $18, I'm going to get my value out of that. Game Pass, people are already, subscribed saying, yeah, I already know. And I'm not even getting first party titles yet. So I think that's where Sony has to kind of figure out and kind of get together and show everybody what they're going to do.
Completely agree. Scott, let's round off this one if we can. What have we got in the chat?
Yeah, so where did we get up to? Where did we get to? So Pudsey99, I guess, just talking about these subscription service in general, says Game Pass has helped me see the indie scene got introduced to Fable, and it's so beautiful. Yeah, I think that's a real benefit of these services. It lets you see games that you wouldn't typically play. Stubbs saying everyone does it, referring to waiting for Game Pass. Back from the Dead One says definitely not. You don't want to limit the player base. Appeal of subscriptions by limiting variety to AAA titles. So I think it's talking about the variety of games. They're gonna still cater for those who want indie titles and still sort of court those developers. Stubbs Gaming also says services like Game Pass and PS Plus, they don't like a game to be in the rival service, and I bet it's in the contracts. That's touching on what we were saying before, but as I mentioned, Guardians of the Galaxy is at least one initial example of games that is going to be in both.
Square Enix.
They'll just take anyone's money. They don't care where the money comes from.
When Xbox came
what side it comes from.
Exactly. When Xbox came and said, "Hey, we want Guardians," I'm sure Square said, "Yeah, but Sony's got their service, and us and Sony, we're kind of BFFs, so we're not going to do any exclusive deal with you." And Xbox was kind of in the position of like, "Okay, fine."
Going back to Stubbs' comment, I mean, this could actually put a little bit of power back into the indies corner, shall we say? Because Stubbs was saying, I bet it's in the contracts, and I think he's talking from the platform holder contracts. But actually, the indie, the indie studios and devs saying, well, actually, if you don't go with us, we'll go to the other side. So they've got a little bit more bargaining power themselves, haven't they?
For sure. For sure,
but not just indie developers though. Flap, any developer and publisher has a similar power. When there's more than one player, you can play them off each other. Whether you're indie, whether you're Square Enix, whether you're whoever, you've got a little bit more bargaining power there. Stubbs did go on also to say, I think that Sony and Microsoft have aggressive contracts with services like Game Pass and PS Plus, so don't presume it's just PlayStation. Yeah, I think that's fair. What I was referring to is just kind of the example examples that we've got at the moment and the history we've seen, obviously time will tell. But there is at least one example at the moment, like I say, where it's in both. So that at least shows some leniency on Xbox side because it hit Game Pass first. So we'll see how that plays out. That'll definitely be one to watch. BMG says war of the third parties. Yeah, third parties probably have a little bit more power in those conversations now, because their content is going to be important for both of these players to obviously highlight the benefit of their services. Pong, you touched on it. You know what's coming next with Microsoft. You know there's first party games coming with Sony. You don't know how long that's going to be. So maybe third party is going to be more important to this type of service. And then we got one from Pudsey here, who also says he's never going to touch Destruction All Stars, which I think unfortunately for them, a lot of people were maybe of the same opinion, which is a bit of a shame. A bit of a shame. It's never good to see a game fail, but it didn't seem to do particularly well, I'm afraid. I think that's it for the chat flap.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Scott. Expertly done. No, that's brilliant. And thank you, chat, for all of those comments. It's always great to have chat as the fifth panel member on our show. Thank you for that. I'm going to round that one up there. It's an interesting one. There's some really interesting sort of questions and nuances that can come out of this. And the answer is we won't know until both services kind of mature as they go on. And like you say, the PlayStation Plus is playing catch up at the moment to some degree. So it will be interesting to see how it pans out. But we're going to move on to topic 2, which I think will be quite a big topic, hopefully. And we'll probably come to you first on this one, Darren. Is now the time for the Marcus Phoenix collection, the Gears collection? Is now the time to be doing this? Is the year 2022 the time to be releasing this? Special Nick via Pure Xbox has stated that a Gears of War collection is rumoured to release this year. He explained that he was of the belief that a Gears of War collection could be coming this year. The journalist expects that the remastered collection will be at E3, Xbox's big E3 announcement or the showcase. Special Nick also stated, if you go from November 2021 to November 22 and you look at Microsoft's big output, it could wind up being Halo, Gears, Forza. It's an interesting one. It's been rumoured for a little while around like a Marcus Phoenix collection. Darren, do you believe these rumours? Do you think it could actually happen? Is this something that's going to sort of drop out the blue probably later in the year?
Well, for the last month or so, I've literally stuck my neck out and I've said 99.9% this Marcus Phoenix collection is coming. It is on its way. They've got to do it because I believe the servers are shutting down for the old ones soon. So what they're going to have the Gears fans playing? They won't be able to play online if the servers are shutting down. So what better way to bring out the Phoenix collection? There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Plays straight into their hands.
Absolutely. And do you think...
And Xbox gets loads of applause.
Well, do they? I think they will from Gears fans. Yeah. But perhaps the question is, if it's coming later in the year, does it fill the gap that's left, that is potentially being left behind by Starfield and Revel?
See, that's another, what I reckon is coming on the showcase. They're going to drop Gotham Knights into Game Pass because of all the news that's gone on with Starfield, etc. And I can see a Motorsports beta being announced straight after. Say, look, there's the beta, off you go. And I think they will probably drop this Marcus Phoenix collection not later in the year. It'll be within the next month or two after the show. That's what I think. Anyway.
You think it'll be that soon?
Oh, yes. Because Coalition have been working on an IP for a long time. It's been rumoured they're working on something. And, well, maybe this is the time for Microsoft to say, look, we knew this delay with the other two games were coming a few months ago. Come on, let's get this into action now. Let's give them what they want. Yeah, all right. I was on the show with Colt and Titan on my show Sunday. Colt came out with, look, he's sick and tired of people coming up, all you got is Halo, Gears and Forza. Halo, Gears and... He said, I'm actually telling people, say, look, I don't want that all the time. I want a new IP. Some people want a new IP, but I love playing Gears, so I'm up for it because I've played the Ultimate Edition. It's brilliant. But some people don't want it, so... Technically,
it's going to be Forza, Halo, Gears, Forza, if you include...
Well, yeah, it will be, wouldn't it? Yeah.
So, yeah. Pong, you've been on many, many podcasts, host your own podcast. This will not be the first time you've discussed this particular topic. what do you make of this particular rumor? Do you think it will be here in 2022?
Yeah, I think there's enough smoke now that we can probably pretty reassured that there's going to be some type of collection put together for Gears. I think it's been a long time coming. Again, as an old Gears fan, again, I'm not a fan of
Yeah.
4 and 5. Okay,
Oh, you don't like
again, they're
5?
good. No, they're good
Oh.
games, but I hate the whiny kids. Okay, the whiny kids can go fly a kite. I hate the bright graphics. I want the dark. I want the
Wow.
old school. I want the dark, dirty, and gritty. I want my dude bros back again. Okay, that's why again, that's where I am. So I will be extremely happy to see this happen. Does it fill any type of gap? No. To be real, it doesn't. Will it excite the Gears fan base? Absolutely, of course. There's tons of people out there like myself who absolutely love it, including, my brother Steele. Again, it will be great for us, but is it going to fill that void of a brand new IP from Todd Howard after 2 decades and Bethesda's A-Team? No, it's not even going to come close. I actually, if you gave me the choice, I would have rather have had the Fable collection be remastered that we heard about, potentially being, and we had that weird tweet from the Fable Twitter account last year that got retracted and said it was a mistake, and it kind of hinted that maybe something like that was coming. I would almost hope they also have that in the works, because I think with Fable being made by Playground, Fable being, in my opinion, a couple years away at the minimum, I think that it would be great to have the Fable remasters. I think those need to be updated even more than Gears does, and I think that would actually create some real big excitement to go back and replay the Fables again and introduce new people to Fable and what it's all about before the new one actually starts getting hyped and we start getting the marketing in the next year and a half, whatever it's going to be. So overall, I'm happy if the Gears collection happens. It's going to be a cool announcement. It's been a long time coming. That Gears deserves the respect. They've been kind of the secondary redheaded stepchild per se to Halo this entire time, but Gears really put the Xbox 360 on the map. Gears is what drove the 360 generation. That first Gears game was there was nothing like it on the market at all, and it really changed the industry in a lot of ways, much like Halo did previously. So again, I'll be excited. I know a lot of people will be excited. It's just not going to be that gap filler that we hope for. That's all.
It's funny you should say that, because the original OG Gears of War was the first Xbox game I ever played. I skipped the OG Xbox, came straight in at the Xbox 360. I got my Xbox. It was the arcade edition, so it didn't even have a hard drive. So it was the box standard crappy one, but I didn't buy it. It came as part of a phone deal. I don't know if you had this in the States.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But yeah, in the UK around those sort of times when you got a mobile phone, they would kind of entice you in by giving you a free gift. And my free gift was an Xbox 360. And I ordered. I was really excited for it to turn up. I was actually really gunning for the PlayStation 3 at that time. I think the PlayStation 3 had been delayed for 6 months at that point, so this was kind of a gap filler for me until my PlayStation 3 turned up.
And I want to add this too real quick, because I see people discuss. BMG brought it up too. I don't think this is Coalition's project. I think Coalition helped, but I think they brought in somebody from the outside.
I was coming on to that.
So, and I'm sorry to read your mind, but yeah, I think that the Coalition does have their own separate project outside of this, and I think they obviously would have helped. It's their baby, it's their franchise, but I just don't think that they were the main studio on this if this does come to fruition. I could be completely wrong. I just think somebody else probably came in from the outside to work on it.
Well, that's interesting, because that obviously means that the Coalition are probably freed up to be doing something else, probably Gear 6 or whatever it is. But Scott, what
small project we've been hearing about.
Yeah. Scott, what do you think the Marcus Phoenix collection would look like? What would it be? I mean, we've obviously got the Master Chief collection to use as an example, but how do you think the Gears collection would work? What would be in it?
Yeah, So it's obviously been compared to the Master Chief Collection. They've got some similarities, I guess, because Gears of War 1 has already had its Ultimate Edition, its remaster. Master Chief Collection included the remaster of Halo Combat Evolved, or essentially it was the PC version. As part of the Master Chief Collection, Halo 2 got an Anniversary Edition, which was a remaster of Halo 2. So will they do something similar? Will Gears 2 or Gears 3 get a bit of a new splash of paint, shall we say, or is it just going to be Gears of War Ultimate 2, 3, and then what games are going to be included? Are they going to go all the way up to 5? Are they going to stop at 4? Will they include Judgment? Will they do maybe what cost the Master Chief Collection and try to implement a multiplayer suite across all games? That would be the logical decision if they're going for that style of collection. That's also maybe where they could try to monetize it a bit more, turn it into more of a live service game. So it's interesting to see what way they go. I think maybe they go 1, 2, 3. Okay. Do you think that would be too little if they just went 1, 2, 3? If they leave out Judgment, if they leave out 4, or would they include 4 in? Would they include 4 in that?
Well, go Darren.
I think they
go 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, but do you reckon they would remaster 2 and 3? Would they do anything with 2 and 3?
I think they will.
You think they would?
I would hope so. I would hope so. I think if you do, yeah, you've got to do something with 2 and 3, especially if it's only 3 games. I appreciate, it's not only 3 games; it's still 3 games. Master Chief Collection ended up having like 5, and the Halo 2 Anniversary remaster was amazing. For those who are a fan of that game, that was a superb remaster of that. So it would be good to see 2, maybe 3 as well get similar treatment. And like I say, then it comes down to what's the multiplayer component.
Well,
to that.
that's going to be my next question. So do you think they
leave
will...
that to you?
Well, yeah, I mean, do you think they will actually stick all of the multiplayer into one package, as it were, a little bit like Master Chief Collection, and you can just from there select which game you want to play, or the rotation of maps and the weapons and stuff? I don't know. How do you think they might handle the multiplayer side of things? Is that going to be a standalone application, do you think, for the multiplayer side of it?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think it'll be standalone. Sorry, I think it'll be very similar to the Master Chief Collection, where you've got one game, one application, one title that allows you to flip between them. Now, the reason I asked as to whether it'll include multiplayer, and I think it should, and it probably will, was remember the launch of Master Chief Collection. A lot of those issues were down to the fact that you were switching between different games with different network architecture. And it obviously didn't go well, which has been well documented. So I think they will and they should, but I wonder if the experience that they have with Master Chief Collection would maybe make them hesitant to do so, maybe focus on remastering the campaigns and for 2 and 3 rather than having the multiplayer component, or maybe they just include Gears 3 multiplayer rather than 1 and 2. It'll be interesting to see how they approach it if it does turn out to be.
Is this not a good time for them to reinvigorate the multiplayer side of Gears of War and actually perhaps introduce a season pass and things like that and try and monetize it somehow? Is that not something you think they might be able to do?
Absolutely, yeah.
Multiplayer into a season pass, do it that way. Just do the campaigns, but if you want to do multiplayer, there's a season pass. Take it or leave it, sort of thing.
I don't think the multiplayer would be behind a season pass. I think the multiplayer would be included, but I guess there is the possibility of them introducing the season pass to go alongside the multiplayer. Now, where that gets interesting, and I know we've obviously got big Gears head in the chat. Stubbs, I'd be interested, because I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a big multiplayer guy for Gears. I love the campaigns, not into the multiplayer too much. I've dabbled. I prefer the co-op over the competitive side of things. Did any of those games have monetize or things that could be monetized in them, skins, things like that? Because if they didn't and they want to add them in, then that's probably a significant undertaking to essentially adapt the game, not only to remaster it, but to adapt it to cater for a battle pass and different customization options that they could monetize. But it's certainly something that I think they would do. I know Stubbs wasn't particularly fond of the way they monetized the previous Gears games. Stubbs, please correct me for that.
No, he wasn't.
If I'm wrong in saying that, but
But isn't this a good opportunity to kind of readdress that at this point and kind of reinvent the wheel, as it were, regarding that?
Yeah, absolutely. How much can you reinvent the wheel, though? You know, if you've got one wheel to start off with, how much can you reinvent that one? Because they've obviously got a base game that they've got to work with. But again, going back to Master Chief Collection, they did have a season pass in it. It was completely free, and the way they adapted that model was actually pretty damn good. And Infinite was a step down from Master Chief Collection, to be perfectly honest. So if they went that route, then I think that will be good. But it depends on whether they want to monetize it. With Master Chief Collection, they didn't. So it'll be interesting to see if they try to monetize it with this collection.
Well, like you say, perhaps the Master Chief Collection was kind of dipping their toe in the water just to see how it landed. And like you say, perhaps there is an opportunity there to actually make some money out of this. Pong, I'm interested with what you said. And it was a question I was going to ask. You know, are Coalition the primary studio doing this, or are they the kind of the secondary studio doing this? And if they're the secondary, who do you think is doing this?
That is the question, right? I have no idea, to be real.
Who has the chops to be able to do it?
Who has the chops to work? You know, again, it would not be just completely hands off. Again, Coalition would have a hand. I know Stubbs is claiming that it's definitely all Coalition. And again, like I said, I could be completely wrong. But from everything we've been hearing, Coalition has been doing something, kind of different and trying out some new stuff. Would it make sense that they're using the Phoenix Collection to test the waters with Unreal 5? Of course. It makes a lot of sense. But to name a specific studio, I really can't. Again, what support? That's the problem, right? Xbox is, certain affinity. We know a really close relationship, but they've been working on Halo Infinite. We know that Battle Royale mode. So again, there's only so many studios that we know of that Xbox has had relationships with in the past. A lot of them got gobbled up elsewhere. Like the Killer Instinct Studios, etc. That all got gobbled up by other people. So who are they currently working with? But again, they've got wide reach. They've been out there. Their global publishing arm is huge. So who knows who they reached out to help with this? Your guess is as good as mine, Flap. I don't have a good name to throw out there. I just think that somebody else probably was doing a lot of the lifting on this, if it's real, because I do believe that Coalition's working.
Scott, any ideas who might step in? Is it? Do you think it would be internal or external?
I'm pretty much on the same opinion as Pong, to be honest. I think it would be an external developer.
Okay.
And they'd have the Coalition focusing primarily on whatever comes next, whether that's Gear 6 or another project. They will be involved to an extent. They will have oversight on it, similar to, how they were involved in Gears Tactics. They weren't the primary developer on that. So they will have some oversight. But I think maybe someone like Saber Interactive, who worked on the Master that might strike fear into people's hearts. Maybe someone like Saber would be involved, but I think it might be a struggle, because these support studios or these third-party developers that do this, they're in high demand. So who knows? We really don't know at this point.
Well, if there's a reveal at the Xbox Game Showcase, and let's assume that the rumors are correct and they do reveal it, I'm guessing they will flash up on the screen the studios that are behind it. I'm guessing that could actually give us an indication whether this is actually going to be multiplayer focused or not, depending on the studio that's actually been running with it to some degree, I guess. Interesting. Yeah, okay. So when do we think it might land? Do you think November? Do you think they're going to actually try and fill the gap? Because, do you think
this usually out in November, though?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, with obviously the advent. I know it's not going to fill the gap that Starfield's going to leave behind. Arguably, it's not going to be a console seller, but for the Xbox and Gears fans that are out there, perhaps filling something in November for the holiday period would kind of ease our frustrations on that side of things, to be honest. And to be honest, like you said, Pong, although it's not going to fill that gap, we've still got Starfield yet to come. It's still happening, isn't it? So it's not like Starfield's been cancelled and this is what's going to have to replace it. It's still yet to come. So,
right.
Interesting.
You've seen the suggestion from Ash Reviews, who says 11/11/2022. Do you think they'd dare do that?
Oh, they couldn't, could they? What day?
No, I don't think.
Let me have a look. What day is the 11th of November? That is
Maybe they went back and worked
Friday.
with People Can. Maybe they went back and worked with People Can Fly again. Since People Can Fly had Judgment. They got Judgment underneath their belt. It wasn't well received, but they're used to working on the Gears franchise. Maybe People Can Fly had an extra team that started working on it. Just threw that out there.
That's interesting.
Possible. I mean, they've got some experience with it.
Yeah.
That could be controversial if it is, but
yes, it could be.
Yeah,
and I appreciate there'll be people who will be hesitant to that, but I think also it's probably worth remembering that they're remastering existing games. It's not like Judgment where they're making their own games, so they're not going to be able to make too much of an arse of it. I don't think. Or you like to think not, because it is just in a lot of cases it might just be for Gears of War 1. They're not going to be remastering that. It's just going to be putting Gears of War 1 into a suite of titles or games like Halo 3, 4, and Combat Evolved. So there's not going to be much, if any. Well, obviously there will be, though. Sorry, that was a silly thing to say. Yeah. They're not going to be remastering and doing much development on Gears of War 1. So it would just be remastering 2 or 3 or maybe both where that will come in. But if it is just remastering, obviously they're still working with the original games. They're not going to be changing them in any meaningful way, you would suspect, at least.
Stubbs is hating me right now for bringing it up.
Do you think, and this will please Stubbs, do you think Xbox give Gears enough?
You've gone there, Flap.
Yeah, no. Do you think they push them enough? Because everything's Halo. I love the Gears franchise. I really do. In fact, I prefer it to Halo in many ways. And like I say, it was the first Xbox game I played, and that real gritty first Gears of War I played on my HD TV, 720 it was at the time, 720p TV, which I thought was the bee's knees at the time. It blew me away, and it's like, wow, if this is the future of that generation of consoles, this is a real special thing. And to be honest, Gears was a standout title for a couple of years afterwards, to be honest, in terms of sort of graphical fidelity and things like that.
Did you know, Flap, that, sorry to interrupt, the 360 wouldn't have been the 360 if it wasn't for Gears? Not just in terms of the game itself, but the reason the 360 had 512 megs of RAM compared to the original plan 256 was because of a Gears of War demo by Epic that showed them the difference. And genuinely, I think that would have had a massive difference on the outcome of that generation. I know it's not maybe that much of a change, but that doubling of RAM, considering how the potential power differential between the PS3 and the 360, I think likely made a massive difference. So if it wasn't for Gears of War, who knows?
That's a massive deal as well, because obviously if you're talking about doubling the RAM for every single unit sold, all of a sudden
cost them $1 billion. They said
exactly, your costings changed all of a sudden. And they did this, like I say, they did this weird tier of kind of arcade version without a hard drive and all kinds of weird and wonderful things, but didn't have an HDMI. I don't think HDMI even existed in those days. It was DVI. Well, I think we're going to round it up there, but before we do, have we got any chat we need to get through, Scott? I get the feeling there's going to be someone. We haven't heard from Darren for a little while, so what have we got in the chat?
We've got a bit, so I think there's a little bit of trolling going on by one Mr. BMG. Maybe he's had one Foster's too many, who says waste of collision resources. In my opinion, Gears collection is like getting a remaster of SpongeBob's Rehydrated. Pointless, a waste of resources. Time to leave all games in the past and look to the future. I think he's maybe trying to get under Stubbs' skin there, isn't he? So, but there's a fair bit of excitement in there. So Pudsey says Moss Chief collection did it first. So Marcus Venus collection is a no-brainer. Gears of War bundle, let's go. Stubbs says, agree, I love Gears of War, but it won't fill the gap for me. It won't fill the gap. For me, it will, but I am biased. St. Irv says, I want to replay Gears 2 and 3. I think I'm of the same opinion. I would actually love to go back and play them, especially, I've got a greater appreciation after 5 and Hive Busters and things, so I'd like to go back. Ash Review Games says, I think the next Gears will have free multiplayer like Halo Infinite. That's
interesting.
Interesting. Yeah. We'll see. And then speaking about the multiplayer and the season passes, so Stubbs says season passes in Gears 4, they screwed everyone over. Trust me, they made big mistakes. He also says you can't go back monetize Gears 1, 2, and 3. It would go badly in the Phoenix collection.
Have they Have they learnt from those mistakes? I'm not convinced they have, if I'm honest.
Well, I guess it depends. Like he
If there's
says,
money
it's
to
a
be made,
mistake.
they'll do it.
Yeah, that's the thing, Darren. Like a mistake, it might be, yeah, you pissed the community off, but did it get you money? Was it really a mistake financially? It would be the question. And then just a couple more. So BMG says if they're doing this collection, then they should go the Mass Effect Legendary Edition route and scrap the multiplayer mods, which I would be surprised.
I would be surprised.
I would still play it. And then says, what if they did the COG collection? So I assume that would maybe include Judgment and 4 as part of that as well, which I think would be obviously a more significant package. The Marcus Phoenix collection, I think, is basically just riffing off the Master Chief collection. I don't think there's necessarily been any indication as to what route they go down yet. So yeah, it could be that.
I think to make this financially viable, it has to be. I think multiplayer has to be a significant factor in this. And I also think they will desperately try and monetize it if they can, because they've already got the precedent of that and the experience of season passes and stuff. So, interesting. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. We're going to round up topic 2 there. I hope the rumours are true. I would love there to be a Marcus Phoenix collection, COD collection, whatever it's going to be. It's going to be exciting to see. It's also going to be exciting to see whose name flashes up the end as a development studio that have been part of that, and how they're going to bundle it and package it all together and what it looks like, particularly multiplayer. As much as I love the story, I never actually really got into Gears multiplayer that much. I was more of a single player of Gears. So for me, there's still a lot of untapped game time that I've not actually put into Gears on multiplayer. So it'd be a great time for them to bring in a brand new audience that's not really experienced Gears on that level. To get a new audience on that, and like I say, if we can monetize it, then all the better. Fantastic, thank you very much. What a great topic that is, and like I say, I hope it comes true. Where are we now? It's the 19th.
Know in a month.
I was going to say less than a month, and we'll know, hopefully, one way or the other. So fantastic. We're going to come on to topic 3. It's a bit sort of tongue in cheek. It's a bit clickbaity, if I'm honest, but we'll come on to it. And this is whether Fable is still in early development. Now I can probably answer that now. Hopefully it's not. But there was a tweet on Reset Era that they posted a tweet from Idle Sloth who advertised or posted a job listing for a senior rendering specialist. In fact, I think I've got an image of it I can pop up on the screen. I don't know how many of you have seen this. This was posted probably about a week ago. It's not that long ago. And as you can see, Playground Games is looking for an experienced senior rendering specialist to join the Fable team working on our brand new open world action RPG title. You will join the team on project at an early stage, giving you the rare opportunity to shape the technology used to build a large AAA title. Now, I know a few people saw through this straight away and kind of worked out what was going on. But I think it scared quite a few others in the community. And I've got to be honest, it caught me off guard at first. I'm thinking, oh, geez, I was hoping Fable was a lot more developed than still in early development. And to cut a long story short, it turns out that it looks like that was a copy and paste from a 2019 job listing for a lead UI engineer. So thankfully, or we hope that Fable is still very much on track. But it does raise the question of where do we think Fable is in its development? Because they're obviously still advertising there's job listings coming up for Fable, and there's probably one for you, Pong. And again, not going to be a new topic item for you. But I'm just wondering where you think Fable is. Will we see it at the game show, and will it be dropping next year?
Well, I alluded to in the last topic. Personally, no and no. Personally, I think it's 2024 at the earliest. I do. Again, when we say early development, it all depends on what you think of early development. Like, again, would I say kind of design phase? No, we're not that far back. I mean, they've been working on it now for a considerable amount of time, but we have also heard that Playground has, again, what I'm about to say is not development hell. It's not any of that nonsense that we hear about a lot of the times whatsoever. But we have heard that Games has been having some issues of getting the game together because of their inexperience when it comes to open world RPGs. They are experienced open world car
Driving.
PGs,
Yeah.
not people PGs, right?
Yeah.
So not the RPGs that we think of where mission structure, NPC dialogue, all this stuff that they haven't really had to think about before was causing some slowdown. They've been bringing in talent from across the industry to supplement, kind of their naivety of what they are, have when it comes to real open world RPGs. So they've been trying to bring in people to help them out with this, and they continue to hire new people. So I do think that has slowed down the production. I don't think that we should expect to see it at the showcase. I would be very surprised, that we see anything. I think that unless, and I said this on Boom Show this morning, I've said this in other places when we were talking about what happened with Starfield. Look, if you don't have anything else, if you don't have a plan B, and Starfield, Redfall being missing, you have Motorsport, but you really don't have anything else aces up your sleeve, so to speak, with first party, then you just have to lean into the fact that this showcase should be about hopes and dreams. Okay. As much as we as Xbox fans, and not even me myself, because again, last gen I started on a PlayStation and came back to Xbox later on after 360 dominated generation. But for people who have been here that have heard just wait longer, right? Just wait until next E3. That has been a meme that's been going around. And this year was supposed to end that. But if you don't have anything, you got to lean into that and say, look, if I'm Phil, I know that you want to kind of keep it that you're going to show things that are within the same year as this showcase or the following year. I say you lean into it and start throwing out Christmas presents and say, look, we got this in 2023, we got this in 2024. Then I think you bring out Fable and show some, environmental stuff, right? A flyover of the world or whatever they have ready. We did hear from Rand on PM in the PM, my and Mash show a couple weeks ago, that almost every first party studio has given Phil something to show and his team to show at this show. Not that they were going to cut a lot, but without Starfield, without Redfall, maybe you do throw some of that stuff back in. Maybe Fable is one of them. I just think that Fable is a little bit behind. I think this is going to be one of those longer games with Xbox's new commitment to quality instead of just pushing games out. And we've seen them delay now 2 gigantic titles in Halo Infinite and Starfield. I think that they're going to give Fable and Playground Games all the time they need. So I think 2024 at the earliest. And I think that maybe if they're ready in 2024, we'll see it next year, next year's E3 showcase, whatever it is. Next year would be the time that they show.
Okay, no, that's interesting. Yeah, no, and to be honest, sorry, but I have to agree with everything you've said there, and I don't want to because I want it here a lot sooner.
Right, so do I.
And I want to see it in a month's time, but I do sadly have to probably completely agree with you. Scott, Darren, do you think that Playground were entrusted with this because they were a British studio to try and handle the sort of the humour aspect of it? Obviously, Playground have got a pedigree, like you say, in open world games, not necessarily people walking around in open world games, but driving ones. Do you think that was the primary factor for Playground getting it?
I think so, because I'm not being funny. If you have a foreign studio, they won't have the same sort of mentality of our humour, what our humour is like, our jokes, our one-liners, our sarcastic comments. So the only studio that would really do that under Xbox would be Playground, a British home studio. They would understand all the sarky comments, the remarks, the one-liners, the cheekiness, the rudiness, like the old Carry On Films type humour, that sort of stuff. So yeah, perfect. But I agree with Pong totally. Might get a little bit of more of a CGI trailer possibly at the show, but I would personally say 2024 or towards the end of 2024. I think personally.
Okay, I think the end is 2024 as well. Is that a fair comment, Pong? That the whole humour side of things, it kind of needs to be a British studio doing it, or
Well, of course, I am obviously an American, but
Yeah.
I do appreciate British humor, right?
Right.
I've been a fan of British humor.
Is that key to Fable
sure.
though? Is that
Yes,
one of the
yes,
things?
it is.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and I've said that from the beginning. Like, I believe that this Fable will be a little bit more, um, I don't want to say grown up, but more serious than the previous Fables. I think they are going to take it in a more realistic type setting, more towards the Elder Scrolls side of things versus the old Fables.
Okay.
But I want them to make sure that they do keep the humor in there, because that is what kind of separated Fable from the rest as well. And I don't want them to lose that. It's harder to do in 2022, 2023 than it was back then with some of the jokes, but I think that there's still a very great importance on that. And I think that Playground was probably partially chosen, but I also think that Playground themselves are extremely ambitious studio who want to be known outside of Forza Horizon for something else. And I think they believe that they are ready to take that next step. And that's why they were also given this chances, on top of it. But, we've heard Playground has brought some of the original Fable crew back in, right? They've hired some of the old original crew back in to make sure that it does keep those kind of very, it's not symbolic. It's highly important parts of the old Fable series intact as they move forward into this new generation of Fable.
Well, hopefully they haven't re-employed Peter Molyneux back on this one. But Scott,
come on! I'm about Molyneux fan. I still want Milo. Bring him back just to do Milo, please.
Do you remember that? Yeah, with the Kinect. Yeah.
Yes. I want a best friend kid on my screen.
Scott, what kind of hash do you think Playground are going to make of this? Is this within their gift set to do? Because let's face it. They are going to be heavily scrutinized for this. Even if it was Lionhead doing this, not only have they got to bring Fable onto a brand new generation, they've got to bring it into the current year, and with all of our gaming expectations and standards that we now have in terms of graphical fidelity, controls, animations, like you say, all of the writing, the humor. A studio that's never made one of these games before has got to bring all of that together, and it's got to be good, or has it? Has it got to be good for Microsoft? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes. I think it has to. This is a first party game from one of their premier studios.
Yeah.
It has to be good. But they've obviously entrusted Playground Games with it, and not just because they're a British studio. Obviously, that is an element to it, because yes, the humor that is kind of fundamental to that series, but also because of the extreme amount of talent that they've got and that they've proven with Forza Horizon. Now, I sometimes think that Playground don't get the credit that they deserve because they've just worked on racing games, and obviously it's a spin-off from an existing franchise. I really don't think that they get the credit that they genuinely deserve for what they've done with Forza Horizon. Just at a technical level, if you just look at the games that they've created, just look at Forza 5 and just imagine an open world RPG within that type of environment. I think that should get you excited. I'm in agreement with Pong, though. I think it will be slightly different. I don't think you can just go for the Fable 1, 2, and 3 humor. Will we see fart jokes in it? Maybe. I'm not too sure, but I do think it'll be a little bit more serious, maybe a little bit darker. So they're putting their own spin on it, because I think if they're just trying to recreate what Lionhead did with the originals, I think that's maybe a dangerous path to go down that I think leaves them open to fairly, because if they just try to recapture exactly what those original games had, I think that's difficult. But also the world has moved on. When was Fable 1? Fable 1 must be, 20 years ago now?
Was it an OG Xbox
maybe
title?
18?
Or was it
yeah,
360?
Fable 1 was on the original Xbox.
It was, right.
So it was on the original Xbox. So 18, 19 years ago or something. If anyone can check that, please do let me know. But that's a long time. 2 decades have passed. The world has changed a bit. Humor's changed in that time. 2004. So 18 years now, isn't it? Thanks, Pong. So I think they have to do something slightly different. When you talk about how it looks and things like that, though, Flap, I don't know who played the Fable Legends beta. Did anyone here play Fable Legends or the beta for Fable Legends? No, that game and Flap, I don't know if you remember, that game looked bloody good. It looked really good for the time. I even think if you just up-res that now, I think it would still hold up by today's standards. I thought, and the reason for that, and I think this is something that Nintendo do really well, and this is obviously different cases, the art style was fantastic. And I think that's something that they'll have to change from what they do with Forza. It can't be just ultra realistic like it is with Forza. They've got to have like a nice art style that is something more akin to the original games.
So here's a question. Here's a question. So obviously Playground are known for their Forza Horizon games. They are currently working on a Fable game. Will they be this? Will there be multiple Fable games coming from Playground going forwards? Will it be sort of Horizon Fable, or a Microsoft just seeing how this one goes? I'm guessing before you write the next check. But
yeah, I guess that's the hope, isn't it? They probably hope that that's successful, where they could essentially reboot the franchise and have another pillar. I think Pong, you mentioned. I think Darren, it was you that mentioned when you were chatting with Cole on one of the shows you've been on, where he was talking about Halo, Gears, Forza, the meme. They don't mind that. They like that. What they want is they want more pillars to that. They want a Fable. They want a Spider-Man, a Last of Us. These types of games that are sort of pillars. They're iconic franchises that are associated with your platform. And I think Fable has the potential to be that if they get it right. So I think, the hope is probably, Fable, Horizon, or maybe they stop doing Horizon. Maybe they just do something else. If they prove themselves, I genuinely think that Playground Games are up there with Coalition as one of Microsoft's best studios. And in the same way that I would like to see the Coalition spread their wings a little bit, and I know that's controversial. I would have the same thoughts about Playground. I think they deserve to be able to work on these titles and hopefully other things in the future as well.
The Coalition's use of the Unreal Engine is unsurpassed, I think, by any of the other Microsoft Xbox studios. If I'm honest, I think the Coalition have nailed that engine. Absolutely. Wow. So we did mention, we're just going to wrap up the show fairly soon, but it was mentioned about the Fable collection. I think you brought that up, Pong. Is that next? Is that got to be next? Because I'm guessing what they could do. So there could be a plan here, couldn't there? Because obviously, what they could do with the Gears collection is get everyone back into Gears in readiness for Gears 6 at some point. But they could perhaps also do the same with Fable, because there's still plenty of people out there who've probably never played a Fable game, and I can tell you now they're fantastic. I love them to bits. It's a good way of getting people back into that franchise. So, who do you think would make the Fable collection?
Oh boy.
Maybe that is in house. So, sorry, I know you put that question upon, but maybe that is in house. Maybe that's something that they do to help familiarize themselves with the franchise, with that type of game, get the experience to develop in that type of title. So maybe that is something that's in house.
Yeah, I could definitely see it being in house if they do have somebody that's available to do it. Again, they've been growing these teams so much that certainly somebody might be able to take that on if they wanted to. Or maybe it starts up once they get Activision Blizzard, and then they got that influx of all those teams, and maybe one of those teams tackle it, as one of their first projects out the gate. I know Toys for Bob, a lot of people want to see them hop right on a Spyro or a Crash, or a Banjo-Kazooie, but maybe out the gates, maybe they hop into a Fable remake or something like that, get their feet wet underneath Xbox. Just something like that. I think they got plenty of talent to do it. It's just finding the time, right? And those Fables do deserve it. Like I said, they do really deserve that remake, in some cases, to bring them up to date and allow a new generation. Like you said, Flap, there is a generation or two that probably have heard of Fable, maybe watched a video of it, but never really got their hands on it. And to update the controls, update some of the stuff that we all know, like a Mass Effect did, really could help create that hype for a whole new group of people going into the Fable coming out. I think it makes sense.
Where do you sit with Fable, Darren? Are you a fan? Is the collection?
I'm not so much a fan, but my missus is. She loves the games.
Yeah.
I can't get into them.
Okay, well, and what aspect of them is it that you don't get into? Is it the RPG side of things or the storytelling
I
side
think
of it?
it's the RPG. It's the RPG side of it. I don't like. I've tried playing the originals, the backwards compatibility, but I just can't get into them.
The originals are a little hard to get into nowadays. The controls are a bit clunky, so they certainly need updating. But I guess, if you lived and breathed it as you came through I mean, I guess Fable 2 must have been my first one then, if the OG Fable was on the if the original Fable was on the OG Xbox. But I fell in love with them straight away. And like you say, it's that quirky humour. Big clunky character. I don't know. I just love them to bits. And that trailer that they showed absolutely got me so excited. It's like, oh, if only they can just nail this game, that would be perfect. But it's a massive ask, and I think as a community we perhaps need to, I don't know, set our expectations to a certain degree. But let's right, Scott. I want to try and round up the show if I can. Just wondering if there are any comments in the chat that we need to catch up with.
Yeah, I'll quickly rattle through some. So first of all, Pudsey said, I said earlier, my mum loves Fable, so she's looking forward to it. So I know you put a poll up about whether people are excited. Maybe we'll come to that after the comments. Time says, I'm looking forward to it and seeing how it looks and plays. Pudsey also says Playground has excelled in Horizon, so I have faith that they can handle Fable. And then on a similar note, and I'm in complete agreement with Pudsey and Ash here. Ash says, they've just worked on one genre mentality is something I'll never understand. A developer is still incredibly talented, even if they focus on one game. Yeah, agree 100% with both of those things. And hopefully, Fable is the game that gets Playground out of that mentality, I think.
What an IP to give a very talented studio to run with. And like I say, that there are themes in the background. Like I say, they are a British studio working on what we would call a British type game, humour, things like that. It's a massive responsibility. And when I asked the question earlier, does this have to be a success? I think it does. So there's a lot of pressure on Playground Games. And if they pull this off, oh my God, that would be so fantastic and really stick them on the map as a development studio to aspire to be like, I guess. It's fantastic. Thank you very much, everyone. I've really enjoyed this topic. I've really enjoyed the show. You've been fantastic guests. Darren, Pong, thank you so much for coming here. Expect more invites in the post. They will be on their way. I will have to get Steel Rain back on the show as well. He brings so much energy to the show. I absolutely love that. Pong, this is your second of 3 podcasts today. So you're going to do, is it PM in the PM? After this?
PM in the PM tonight. Yep, that is correct.
Fun Speculation show. Go and check that out. Fun Speculation with Mav. Fantastic chat. You have been on fire. Absolutely love the chat. Like I say, great things. Just one close out. Are you excited for Fable? This is a poll that we ran. 86% yes, 14% no. So I think that demonstrates how excited people are for Fable, even though it's potentially over 2 years away, perhaps fall 24. So we've still got a long way to go, but fantastic. Thank you very much, everyone. If you've liked the show, please do hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're brand new. Join the Discord server. The link is in the description below. We're a friendly bunch. We can carry on this conversation. The show doesn't have to end here. We carry on all the way through to the next show. Hope everyone has a great time. Safe gaming. Enjoy whatever it is that you do. And we will see you on the next one. Goodbye.
Bye.